Yes, everyone, welcome back to the channel. Stephen Howson, and we might have an update with the ownership situation and talk about leaving it to basically the last minute. Absolutely doing my tits in. How are you all doing? Anyway, happy Wednesday morning, and I think that's the right day. Sounds like the right day, doesn't it? How are you doing? I'm going to get into some of the chats. Mitchell says, good morning. It is just about morning still. We'll allow it. Mr. Miracle says, it's really frustrating right now. Yep, kind of. Will says, that's me out of supporting United then. Now, I'm going to give you some coping strategies for this because I don't necessarily agree with the sentiment, but I don't necessarily disagree with the sentiment. And I'll tell you why there are some coping strategies, and whether you take these seriously or not is up to you. But sometimes this is just entertainment in it at the end of the day. But there is some truth, as there often is in jokes. Listen, the whole Radcliffe, Sheikh Jassim, and whoever the third party is, you're completely entitled to do whatever you want in terms of your relationship in supporting any football club. A lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us were indoctrinated by our parents as children, and we had no choice. No one ever sat us down and was like, well, Bobby, what football team would you like to support? That don't happen. Most of us, it's a dad, a granddad, an uncle, generally a male figure in their life, although some people it is their mum. Took us down to a football stadium, and for the majority of people on here, it would have been Manchester United, but that's not always the case. They'd have took them there and they'd be like, right, this is your club. And some people might have got took to, I'm going to say Luton, just to pull a team out of my arse, and they might have gone, now not feeling it. They might have watched the team on TV first and then made the pilgrimage later as an adult. But for most of us, whatever your connection is, that's your connection, and that's generally your connection for life. We're not about these people that fucking support two teams or started supporting one and then flipped over to another. Fuck those clowns, right? It doesn't matter where you're from. If Manchester United's been the only one that's been in your fucking heart forever, then you're a United fan. And that's that, right? If you pick a new team at the start of every season, you're what's commonly known as a fucking bellend, right? And you might as well just play FIFA and not choose a team because you're not one of us. However, for the vast majority of football fans, you end up with whoever you support, and that's it. Now, I didn't want the Glazers. And for the first year of Glazer ownership, bar the very last game because I did crumble, I went and watched FC United in protest. And it was never going to be a forever protest, but I felt like I was on the protest marches. I was holding the not for sale banner. There was some other shit that happened that I don't know what the statute of limitations is, so we'll just skip over that. But there was things I was actively involved with in 2005, prior to the Glazers taking ownership of the club, and I didn't want the Glazers, and it felt like me to be so vocally, and I didn't have any sort of online presence at the time, but just for myself, I was like, well, to be so vocally anti this takeover, I don't feel comfortable just going cool and going back. So I did go and watch FC United for an entire season. I had a fucking good time doing so. And I crumbled. I think it was a West Ham game just before the end of the 05-06 season. Went back. I never gave my season ticket up. I just didn't go. I had my season ticket all the way through that time. I just didn't go to the matches. My friends used my season ticket. And then I resumed back up where I was following that. So I understand the desire to fuck it off. I understand the desire to be like, this club has become something that I didn't want. 18 years ago, I didn't want the Glazers. Still don't want the Glazers. I'll be very happy when they go, more than likely. Can imagine that there's going to be a lot of people, if Sheikh Jassim buys the club, that don't want to be part of the club anymore. And there's a few things at play here. And I've spoken at length of my desire to not see Manchester United owned by a state. And something that a lot of people go, well look what Britain's done around the world. I wouldn't want the fucking Britain to own Manchester United either. I wouldn't want I don't want our government to be our fucking government. So I don't want any state involvement in any of that sort of shit. Do you know what the state's meant to do? Police, nurses, fire brigade, the roads, and the fucking military, and stay the fuck out of everything else. That's what the state's meant to do, right? I don't want any state involvement in a football club because whether you like it or not, what the state is doing becomes a public relations thing for the football club. That's what happens. Now, I think we've got a loophole on our hands here. Whether or not you believe in the loophole, Sheikh Jassim is a private individual. Sheikh Jassim is not the state of Qatar. But he is the establishment. His old man was prime minister. He works in one of the big banks. He is the establishment in Qatar. This is like one of Boris Johnson's mates buying United almost. Now, there is technically a separation between the actual state ownership, the way Manchester City and Paris Saint-Germain are owned. There is differences in that. But it smells like state involvement, doesn't it? And for me, I'm going to roll with it because at the end of the day, it seems like it's a private individual. I just get the feeling this isn't all as cooked up to be. And I would love the chance to speak, and I'm clearly not going to get that chance. I'm just saying. I would love the chance to speak with him and say, or I'd love an actual fucking broadsheet journalist, instead of just talking wibble, to actually ask him, go, hey mate, where the fuck has this money come from? Because this seems like state involvement. Now, we do have that sort of separation loophole. If you feel you need to play that card, you can say, hey, do you know what? We're not owned by a state. We're owned by a guy called Jassim. Sweet. And most people are going to go, we no longer have any debt on the club. We know we are now no longer beholden to the banks. We are now no longer required to put £100 million of the club's earnings every single season towards paying off interest and debt refinancing. We are now no longer going to have owners that will take dividends out of the club. We have got an owner who fucking somehow under an NDA is leaking all sorts of shit about how he's going to invest into the training ground. He's got a fund to invest into the stadium. He's going to allow Manchester United to compete. On the surface, that is all fucking gangster, right? And I am there for that. I do have my worrying doubts that this is still proxy state ownership. But you know what? I didn't want the Glazers. And for 18 years, we've had the arse ripped out of this club for fuck all. I can imagine if Sheikh Jassim wins the bid, the next 18 years, at least on the surface, will probably be a lot more fun than the last 18 years. And ultimately, for our football clubs, we want that escape. And if there is, even if it's the technicality that we're not state-owned, we're owned by a guy, and he's going to throw loads of dough in, even if we all sort of smell that it's not quite right, I'll tell you this. There's so much fucking drugs involved and corruption involved in football that you almost don't want to peek behind the curtain. And that technicality is the only thing that's keeping the fucking stadiums full. Because games are fixed, matches are bet on, players are taking performance-enhancing drugs, and even the likes of the FA are complicit in fucking covering this shit up because they don't want the fucking curtain to come down and they don't want the show to be seen for what it is, which is fucking stinking, dirty, rotten, corrupt, that takes advantage of working class kids up and down every fucking country, city and favela across the world, selling them a fucking dream that only 0.01% ever get the chance to realise it. And then opposite corner, because it seems like there's only two people going head to head for this, from the potentially fun for the next 18 years, you got missed the fucking 2 season tickets, one at Old Trafford, one at Chelsea, allegedly. You've got potentially loads more debt going on the club. You've got all of this sort of stuff. I can absolutely see why the Qatar bid makes all the sense in the world. And if you're an apolitical fan and you're not interested in that sort of shit, you go, mate, Sheikh Jassim and all this lot just going to fucking pump billions in. It'll be a laugh. Mate, I totally understand you. I totally understand you. Totally. I do worry. There's other things. You hear Sheikh Jassim's already got 3 transfers lined up that he wants to bring in, including Mbappe, and you go, oh, fuck. Saudi Arabia and their takeover of Newcastle. One of the most egregious oppressive regimes in the world in Saudi Arabia literally owns Newcastle Football Club, a regime that murders journalists. Now, I know for a fact other countries are out here fucking authorising murders and all sorts of weird shit. Nefarious and grey and black ops, right? I know that happens. But it's weird when one of those things then starts owning a football club. Now, you had a couple of takeovers in the last 12 months or so in the Premier League. One being Newcastle and one being Chelsea. And those 2 clubs have almost changed places in their takeovers. And one of them has spent absolutely hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions. Hundreds of millions. And they find themselves just escaping relegation. The 2 clubs have literally swapped places. Martin says Mr. Beansty and Kerry Katona ownership. I can't talk about that because we're under NDA. You fucking throw me now. I forgot what I was talking about. Yeah, with Todd Boehly and Saudi Arabia, you've had 2 new owners that have almost just swapped their 2 clubs around. Chelsea had gone from being this weird dictatorship that Roman Abramovich was in charge of, that historically spent a lot of money and give managers about 5 seconds to go win a game. And then they bring Todd Boehly in, and he just goes, do you want to sign all the players? Because we will sign all of these players. And then you have Newcastle, who spent big on Isaac. And then they've just made a couple of key appointments. And they've sorted out the back end. And they seem to be doing it really well fucking run. That's the thing that we don't know. That is the intangible we don't know. Now everyone's going to say, every single billionaire thinks that they know how to, I mean, even fucking me and you watching this here, right? We all think we know how to run Manchester United. But ultimately, we can all see that Todd's not doing a good job and the Saudis are doing a pretty good job at Newcastle. And we have no idea which side of the fence Sheikh Jassim's going to line up on. Is he going to be coming in like Todd Boehly and saying, sweet, I want Mbappe, let's get Ronaldo back, and just doing a madness? Or has he actually got a fucking brain in his head and he's going to do it the same way the Saudis have done it in that sort of stuff? Byron says, I would prefer owners like Fenway Sports Group. Yeah, but if you listen to the Liverpool fans, they're out here fucking protesting every 5 minutes against them. The House of the Mouse is the owner. Oh, Disney. Oh, is the answer, sorry. See, that's the thing. Disney or fucking Apple could be in the mix for us, but just aren't pumping their gums about it. We have no idea. Amazon could be in the mix for us. We have no idea. These are the only 2 that are talking about it, so therefore they're the only ones that are getting analysed and looked into it. Wouldn't it be absolutely fucking bananas if it's like, right, the bids are in, we're going to announce the winner, and the winner is Kanye West? Like, can you imagine? Like, we have no idea. No idea. Furkan says, you'd hope looking at PSG that it'll be like Newcastle, but the thing is, it is a roll of a dice. There is no precedent, apart from PSG, there is no, and let's be honest, it started quite well, but it got a little bit squirrely when they went, actually, fuck it, let's get Neymar, let's get Messi, etc., etc. X-Gen Game Boy says, do you think they will wait until the FA Cup final so they might go with another trophy? Someone messaged me on Instagram, and he messaged me again yesterday saying 22nd of May is getting close. They messaged me months ago saying United get £79 million on the 22nd of May. The sale's not going to happen before then. And fuck me, how right does he look right now? Doesn't he? Super chat from Benair says, should we be scared now that NUFC are ahead of schedule? They're going to be sticking around. But I genuinely think... So there's a few things that we know to be true, right? There's a few truths in English football. One is that London attracts players for whatever reason. I don't understand it. But London definitely does attract players. Two, Manchester's seemingly capable of attracting players as well. I would say to a lesser degree, though. And three, they don't want to live in Newcastle. To the extent where Newcastle were thinking about having a training ground in Manchester, which blew my fucking nuts off when I heard that. But after consultation with fans, they decided against it. So Newcastle were planning on building a training ground in the Greater Manchester area, and then flying up for their matches to play at St James's Park. I don't necessarily agree with that, but if that's a way around attracting players to play for Newcastle by basically making them live in Manchester, it's not the craziest idea I've ever heard. And here's the other thing as well. If you do get... so this is how you know it's not fucking Sheikh Jassim on his own, right? Even if we want to play the technicality card. Well, it's not him, so, you know. They're talking about doing all sorts of investment into the city of Manchester in a similar fashion, because it's happened a little bit with Abu Dhabi. There's been a hell of a lot of investment in the centre of Manchester, but most of it is in them just buying property. They haven't really done anything for the community outside of what's their own stuff. Sheikh Jassim is talking, allegedly, about doing some community-based projects as well as improving some infrastructure around Old Trafford and the training ground and stuff like that. So it'd be very interesting to see one state-owned and one definitely not state-owned entity sort of trying to win favour across the city of Manchester. It'd be a very positive thing for the city of Manchester. And then you might have fucking Saudi Arabia moving in the mix anyway, with Newcastle moving down here. If they hit a stumbling block trying to attract players, now they've got the Champions League and they go, oh, actually, we're in the Champions League now, you should come and play for us. And they go, I'm not fucking moving to Newcastle, mate. If that happens 3, 4, 5 times, I think they might move to Manchester. If they see that as a roadblock for them hitting that final level, I could see them activating that. So it could get really, really interesting inside the city of Manchester. Very interesting. Max says, do I think that this sickening takeover situation has an effect on the dressing room and the team's performances lately? If you ask anybody, they're going to say no. But I think it certainly has some sort of an impact on the manager, at least. Peter Knight says, Steve, I think your average fan just wants a debt-free club with owners that care and invest. I think you're probably right. Abdul says, what has Ratcliffe done for the local community? Oh, he lives in Monaco tax-free. To be fair, have you been to Failsworth? I did my driving test in Failsworth. Think about that, right? Where'd you do driving test, Steve? Failsworth. Passed first time, don't worry about it. If I had the choice between Monaco and Failsworth, gonna be honest, lads, I might have to get a boat. Bobby's United says, we need Qatar investment. They will walk away if they can't buy us. Well, of course they'll walk away if they can't buy us. What sort of thing is that? I don't know if we need the Qatar investment. We need an owner that isn't going to leverage more debt onto the club. And I know the technicalities are that you can't necessarily do that, of course. However, I think United don't need it. We want it, of course. Of course we want it. But then, again, you don't know if you're going to get another Todd Boehly. You can. And here's the other thing as well. I keep seeing this little conspiracy theory kicking about as well. Does Sheikh Jassim even exist? I've never met him. Now, no, that's not usually the gold standard for if someone's a fucking person or not. But, you know, there's one picture of him in a box at Old Trafford from this season, interestingly. And there's that picture that, fucking this one that we've used on the thumbnail. Those are the only 2 photos that exist of him, I think. Isn't it mad? Anyway, should we do the actual news rather than the ramblings of a bucket-headed weirdo? Right, so here's the news, the actual news, because I actually do bring some news to you. Sheikh Jassim submits a late $5.5 billion bid to buy Manchester United. The improved offer includes clearing the club's $1 billion debt. Also pledges to fund for the club and the surrounding community. Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani has made a dramatic 4th bid for Manchester United with an improved offer of no more than $5.5 billion, which includes the clearance of the $1 billion debt and a fund solely for the club and surrounding community. More than 2 weeks have passed since Jassim and Sir Ratcliffe, the Ineos owner, each submitted what were supposedly final bids. More fucking sequels than Fast and the Furious, isn't it, this? The Qatari banker's offer was then close to $5 billion for 100%, while Radcliffe's was thought to be a stake little over 50%, leaving Avram and Joel Glazer, 2 of the siblings, who collectively own a majority share with a 20% stake collectively. The Guardian understands that Sheikh Jassim's intent on becoming United's next owner and move to increase his price by around $500 million while clearing the debt and creating a fund for the club and the surrounding community as he seeks to become the Glazers' preferred bidder. The family originally valued the club at $6 billion after it went out on the market. Whether Ratcliffe, one of Britain's richest people, who also owns Nice, will respond is unclear. However, a third option might be one or more of the Glazers retain their stake and take investment into the club, with US firms Elliott Management and the Carlyle Group interested in doing so too. So, that's the actual news. There we go. Theo says, we know you was in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's why you call it sports washing. What you on about? Yeah, of course I was. I don't know what relevance that's got to anything at all. Jordan says United in the last 12 months seems to be on a good path. Arnold as CEO, good summer recruitment, a strong first season with Ten Hag. Any new owner, I think, needs to support the progress. Absolutely. Yeah, and I don't necessarily think there's things need huge overhauls. Like I was saying, people keep talking about the training ground. Has the training ground fell behind? Yeah, it has, right? 20 years ago, it was cutting edge. It's no longer seen as cutting edge. But you're not talking billions to make that happen. 99% of the stuff that Manchester United and Erik Ten Hag are still... Look, what are they going to do, right? They've got a sports science department. It's a pretty good one, right? Pretty high-end sports department, right? Regardless of whatever sort of PR gets put out by elsewhere. It's a pretty good sports department. Even what Guardiola does at City, they've got a big fancy fucking building and that big dome thing, right? Which is basically just an indoor pitch and an outdoor pitch next to each other with some offices and a gym and a changing rooms inside. But there's nothing special going on in there. Well, we don't know that there's anything special going on in there. I mean, there's obviously potential for something special to be going in there if you're catching what I'm throwing. But most of the work that Erik Ten Hag is going to be doing is on the pitch. The video analysis, the delivery of that to the players, the walkthroughs, talkthroughs, the positioning, the rotations, the patterns of play in the final third. That's still done on the grass. So as long as you've got fucking grass and it's the right length and you've got balls and you've got cones, most of the work and the education and the talking to the players is done in that setting. You got a gym that's capable of doing whatever it needs to do. Sound. You've got enough cameras around the place, which Manchester United was one of the cutting edge people in terms of doing from all the way back in 1998 with Prozone, right? Well, they're one of the first teams to take a hold of this. And actually, there's some really interesting stories about how Manchester United beat Juventus because we was using video analysis to do some of our scouting and see which areas of the pitch that Juventus vacated. Fascinating stuff, right? United have been doing that since the fucking 90s, and it was a pioneer in doing that. So we're still doing that. Yes, there's different things come in, but not all of it is relevant. You know, there are some bits of data that are just nonsense. They're just data for data's sake. There are some really interesting bits of data, but most of it is just to sort of feed decision making into what Erik Ten Hag is going to do, and what Erik Ten Hag is going to do is mostly going to revolve around what happens on the pitch. Are the players getting rested? Have they got the right nutrition? Are they doing their strength and conditioning and recovery? then it's cool. Then get them out on the pitch and educate them into how you want them to play. You don't need too much more than that, really. Like, you can spend a lot of money just for the sake of it, buying fucking dumbbells with a United logo on the end of them and shit like that. Ant says, if Qatar announced the first signing would be Paul Mitchell, would that sway me towards them a little bit more? Yes, that would potentially alleviate, not definitely, but potentially alleviate the doubt that they're just going to make us some sort of absolute fucking sideshow Galacticos thing. Fergal says, do I think Sir Jim and or Radcliffe could sue the Glazers for time wasting? And that because this is a piss take, they love a deadline that meant something. I don't think that's prudent to do when you're trying to buy the club. Big T said, should artificial intelligence be choosing which players to sign? Right, now, here's an interesting one. Artificial intelligence is definitely coming, and if I've been fucking about with ChatGPT, and it's amazing. Some of the stuff that you can get it to do is genuinely amazing. The versions that I'm fucking with at the moment don't have live internet access, and the ones that do, it doesn't quite get it yet. But you got to think, if this is what's accessible to the public, then people that have got shape money or sports clubs have probably got access to levels of artificial intelligence that are doing some different shit. Well, we spoke about this on a video the other day where we was talking about there's some very popular, expensive and well-used software that's kicking about out there in the world that looks at player acquisition data, and it's good, and it allows you to track certain metrics over periods of time, month by month, I think. But it won't entirely replace the old school scouting. Good clubs will not be doing only old school scouting or only data scouting. Good clubs will be doing both. Good clubs will be doing both. And by what I mean in terms of that, I think they'll be identifying and maybe shortening a list down of here's people who are like really shining and sparkling doing data or on the data, but then you're going to go look at them. Are they receiving the ball with the right body shape? Do they dilly-dally on? Because there's no stats to show if you received the ball at the right time. Was your first touch into danger or into space? Are you an effective communicator? There's no stats for that. You know, are they scanning? Are they covering danger that doesn't result in a tackle, but actually they was making the right decision? Like, that's why you have to send scouts out to go and watch football. The TV angle doesn't always give you the best view for that, because it's going to cut to those close-up sort of sexy looking shots sometime, so you can really drill down into what's going on. And also it's also going to follow the ball a little bit, so sometimes you might not see what a defender's doing while the ball's at the end of the pitch, and actually you might want to see what the defender's doing. That's why scouts go and sit in the stand, so they can actually watch that one player in all circumstances of the game. They watch him in the warm-up. What's his body language like? Does he talk to the coaches? Is he a bit more insular? Is he maybe focusing about his own game? Does he do kick-ups? You know, is he coming out there with gloves on and earrings on? Like, there's all sorts of things that you can go and observe and see and make decisions on. And then you also have to ask people, what's he like? And you have to ask really open leading question, not leading questions, because you can be like, is he a good lad? Well, you're going to get a yes or no answer to that. If you go, what's he like? You're going to get more full answer. Or he's a bit quiet, or he's quite loud, bit of a joker, or he's quite serious, he's always there for extras. Those are the things that you got to do. So then the data lines up, the scouting lines up, your investigation into character lines up. Okay, cool. Can we start making a conversation with this player and see if we can bring him in? Fergal says, I'm also a data analyst and a former strength and conditioning coach, and I think both are slightly overhyped in sports at the minute. Possibly. Do you know what it probably is? There's probably a lot of old school managers who are reluctant to get involved with it. So, as with a lot of things, people will be overstating the importance of these to try and hammer it home to the people that are reluctant to it. I think there's absolutely a place for really good strength and conditioning. And it's not just fucking deadlifting and squatting. I think there's a lot of like Does anyone follow the Real Game Athletics page on Instagram? I think there's a lot of that stuff, the proprioception stuff, the real fast twitch sort of movements. I think that sort of stuff can really make a difference to an athlete, over just like, can he fucking squat 225? Like, who gives a fuck? Like, is he able to apply that actually through the ground and into a game? Is he able to accelerate before his defender does and get away from him? These are the things that you want to be able to work on. Are you working on fast feet, things like this? Are you working on balance? Are you working on peripheral vision and things like that? Those are the areas of marginal gains that I think you can actually bring in, and do well with athletes. I think the other stuff is, again, it's fucking, it's staying ahead of the curve of what's actually useful in that, innit? I think that's what's interesting. Do I think Stretford Paddock FC will be profitable, or is that impossible? It's technically, it's not technically impossible. At the moment, it's a fucking big drain on me personally. The situation with Paddock is it's owned by the fans, so it's not designed to be a profitable entity anyway. Anything that we make will either go back into the club or it'll go into the community. And we are a registered CIC, community interest company, so there are no shareholders and there is no profit to redistribute to anybody. So yeah, it won't ever really be profitable. We can run a successful operation, and there's things I'm ready to announce very near soon, which will hopefully lead us to be a bit more stable financially. Yeah, but yeah, it's not something that happened with that. Ant says, I think people also underestimate managers' egos. You need a certain amount to be successful. I think they all need to believe they know the best. Probably a massive element of that. What even is strength and conditioning? Is it exercise? Is it just like exercise monitoring? No. So every club will have some sort of a strength and conditioning coach. It's essentially the fitness coach. So some of them will have different specialties. Some of them will be more strength based. Some of them will be more endurance based. Some of them might be more flexibility based. Some of them might be more power based. They will probably all specialize in something a little bit different, and whatever they favor. Like Jose Mourinho, I don't know this for a fact. I think he would have probably gone with strength as the attribute that he wants to go for. I could imagine Pep, the way he likes to play football, probably favors like agility and endurance as the things that he likes to make sure are being trained for. But I don't know that for fact. I think speed's got something that is something everybody wants to focus on, but again, it's one of those that you're sort of born with, and there's a genetic ceiling for players. But you can probably also improve people by small percentage points, and that's what people probably want to see happen with their S&C. Jordi Cruyff leading Barca, is he heading to United with the Qataris? I mean, he's just as likely to be heading to United with the Qataris as he is anywhere else, I guess, isn't he? Malu says the new metrics that are a combination of already available ones, like shots per expected goal assist or possession per recovery. There are some. One I do like, actually, and it's not one that you see very often. The one that I like is passes per defensive action. I actually like that one. That's how many passes you allow the opposition before you manage to take the ball off them. I like that one. I think that one's quite useful because that shows you whether a team is passively defending or actively defending. You can see a team that allows 20 passes before they try or they actually go and get the ball. But where are they allowing those passes? I think that's a really interesting one that you can drill down lots in and actually deliver loads of information about how a team plays by just looking at that one stat. Some teams might allow 3-4 passes per defensive action. That means they're fucking onto you. And they're forcing turnovers at a really high rate if a team's only able to string 3, 4, 5 passes together. Whereas the team's getting 17, 18, 19, 20 passes per defensive action against them. That shows that they're quite passive, and maybe they're sitting back in a low block, they're getting their shape right before they look to even think about engaging, and they're just allowing a team to pass it around in their defence. I think that's a really interesting metric that I think you can infer a lot of information and assumptions that are going to be correct on the back of, whereas even with XG, if you just glance at XG and don't know how the game was going, it doesn't necessarily tell you the picture of the game. It's a pretty good indicator. But what if there was 2 penalties in one side and then they was just hitting like fucking 40-yard shots on the other side and they had like 50 attempts? Like, the XG is going to be similar. J.E. Frashoni says, of the 2 bids we know, I favour Qatar. The Radcliffe bid seems to be complicated enough to end up being a fiasco. No, so I agree with that. Give me a full clean buyout any day. No one will be cursing the City owners if they win the treble. Yeah. And maybe they should, but they don't. Ryan says, I don't think I heard you use the word scanning prior to this season. You definitely did. You definitely did. Maybe you didn't pay attention, but you definitely did. Malou says, wait till ChatGPT 5 hits. GPT-4 is acting pretty much, is acing pretty much every tertiary exam bar maths. Wow. I'll try to find some super chats so I know I missed them. Let me just find them. Mike says, did I get my Instagram DM about a show I did? I haven't seen it. No. I do get a load of Instagram DMs end up in requests. Music Alley says, what the hell is he on about? How does that ever know? I don't know what that bit could be relating to. Who cares? Scott says, piss me off that the Glazers are hanging in for the last billion when they're already about 4 billion to the good in any deal. It feels like just pure, raw, unadulterated fucking greed at the moment. Chris says, game and player stats are extremely overrated. I can't agree with that. Charlie says, really hope we can beat Bournemouth and Chelsea this week so we can rest the boys ahead of the cup final and stop this treble. What a fucking day that's going to be, eh? But we gotta just fucking hope that Real Madrid pull it off tonight. I was offered a ticket for tonight off someone that I really, really appreciate for asking. I can't fucking go with the Etihad. As much as I would like to go and watch Real Madrid tonight, no, I'm not going to make it out alive. King Cantona, this might be not the most neutral account, says, I watched the Cantona movie, it wasn't bad, action movie. Not seen it, what's it called? Tyron says, ironically, could end up being in our hands to stop City. What's our chances? Not good, I don't think. Adastra says, what's my take on the situation with the Glazers? It appears there's been no progress in selling the club for the past 2 months, like the Glazers are more interested in extracting profits. I think there is genuine interest in selling the club. I also think that they kind of still want to be involved. I didn't actually like, for numerous reasons, didn't like Avram turning up at the Women's FA Cup final. Like, you're not fucking welcome for one. You've never shown any interest in them before. Why now? Don't like that. Makiel says, if Qatar take over, I'd love to see United merge with City. Stop it, you fucking sausage. Honestly, there's been some horrendous things said on YouTube, and that might be the worst one. I'm going to read the full comment out so everyone can have it. Here's what Michael says. He says, if Qatar take over, he'd like to see United merge with City to become one club. After all, winning trophies at any cost is what a fan base wants, right? Okay, it was more sarcastic than I thought it was going to be. But that's horrendous. Disco Stew says, my academy students just won their 3 respective leagues, picking up their trophies at the Player for Wembley. Oh, fucking brilliant. Well done. Is that a helmet in the back next to a printer? Nope, that is 2 helmets in the back next to a printer. Haven't one of the women's facilities been one of the biggest issues in the time as well? Correct. Chris says, Beckham to be involved in some capacity should Qatar win, was heavily involved in the World Cup bid. Well, maybe. but it's a private individual, right? So who knows? Righty, I'm going to wrap it up there anyway. But cheers for tuning in. We might be getting close to the end of this absolute mess of a saga. Or maybe we're not. Maybe the Glazers are going to keep fucking fingering our butts until the day they sling it in total. Anyways, cheers for tuning in. As always, if you're new, make sure to subscribe. And if you are subscribed, hit that button. Content every single day. Quite often twice a day. And we'll see you in the next one. Laters. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.